Hi, good evening. Welcome once again to the Gildari Fred Kisun show right here. We also coming to you live on YouTube, the Guyanese Critic page. I want to say welcome once again, a warm welcome, and I hope that you're having a pleasant entry into the weekend. It's been a very packed week, and what I want to say to you also, as usual, please be safe on the roadway. Lots of rains today. Georgetown flooded in many parts of the city. Lots of fender benders. So as we head into the weekend also, we want to tell you that at least I wanted to make a couple of statements. This show, this talk show, this forum here that we have, it is not affiliated with any program. So every single day I receive a lot of calls. I'm sure that Freddie would also receive a lot of communication. And people would ask us different questions. And so it is... we have been inviting the opposition, and there are a number of opposition representatives or persons who are part of the parliament, and so who have indicated that they will be here. It is the intention to raise the level of debate, the level of conversation, at a very high standard, and that's what we intend to do. We're going to ask the hard questions. We're going to continue to agitate. Tonight we have with us two individuals. They're well known in Guyana, at least in the political circles. I'm going to hand you over. I want to say welcome to them. I'm going to hand you over as usual to my co-host Freddie Kisun. Good night, Freddie, and lady and gentlemen, who is going to do the honors of introducing them. Let's get right on.
Thank you, Leonard. I just have to correct one of your terrible mistakes. I don't know where you live. I live in Georgetown. And there was no rain today and no streets in Georgetown were flooded. I think you're beginning to imagine things. I hope Alzheimer's is not catching up on you. But maybe there was flood where you live. So I just say
there was at the Coffee Square, there was in Regent Street. I have several pictures. You know, but
there was rain today.
Plenty rain, thunder and lightning too.
I was in Camp Street. I was in Camp Street early this morning.
You were probably.
I was in Camp Street at 8 o'clock.
No. This afternoon there was a terrible. I had to shut off my screen.
This afternoon.
Yeah.
Where in Georgetown?
Yeah, a lot of. I have all the images of it.
Where in Georgetown? I was on the seawall with my dog at 3 o'clock. Anyway, well, half of your thing is truth, half is fictional, because I live in Georgetown. Mm. You pass somewhere in Georgetown.
You need to get out more and socialize with them more, right?
You need to get your.
When last time you left this country?
You need to get your facts right.
I'll get right into it.
Last time I left this country was 2000. I don't like traveling. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, wherever you're viewing this program, we've the past 2 weeks, Friday evening, we're following the trend of giving a voice to third parties. My theoretical perspective on democracy is that more media houses you have, more civil society groups, more political parties, it's better for democracy. When one newspaper shuts you out, another newspaper gives you some publicity. Talking about newspaper, if you look at how the newspapers operate, how much coverage do they give our two guests here? To my immediate left is Gerald Pereira. Gerald has been around, as we say in Guyanese parlance, donkey years. Him and I were teenage friends together. Gerald was an executive member of the Young Socialist Movement, the youth arm of the PNC. He has his party called Organization for the Victory of the People. And this is what is so amusing yet terrible about Guyanese society. You may have one-man shows, one-man entities, and they get front-page coverage in the newspapers. A lady nobody knows say something about Exxon, and she's there the front page with her picture. And I, who study the society, would say, who is this lady? How often you see Gerald Pereira getting coverage? Now, here is next to Gerald is Dr. Asha Kisun, no relation. Dr. Asha Kisun is one of the founding members of the new movement. She will be in Parliament next year representing the new movement, the three parties thing that came together and will alternate in Parliament. Dr. Kissoon is a very vibrant woman, very, very energetic and politicized woman. How often do you see her getting front page coverage? So what we're going to do on this program is have all of those smart parties, including these same two personalities here, over and over again. They must get publicity, and if the mainstream media has its own sacred cows, we don't. So our first question would be to the man I have spent donkey years with as teenagers, Gerald Pereira. Gerald, you've had a very, very rich history. Just tell us a little bit, before we move on to Asha, about the Organization for the Victory of the People.
Thank you, Freddie, and thank you, Gildari. And I'm really happy to be here. Thank you again for inviting me so that we can at least get our position, our ideas out to the people of this country. We formed the organization. We had a group, a study group, that we call the Black Consciousness Movement. And with persons from that group, and when I first came back from Libya in 2001, and then I had to dash up. I went up to the World Conference Against Racism in South Africa. And we had this joint initiative group. We were doing community work, running literacy classes, and all of this type of things. And so, right, when they had the Great Flood, we were providing food and all of that. We participated in demonstrations in front of then Home Affairs Minister Gad Raja office and President Jack Dew at the time. And we are an independent political formation, right? Independent. We do not take money, finance from any big business, because we don't want to be in a position where we compromise. We're a truth warrior. I'm a truth warrior. I'm going to say what I have to say. Once it's not libelous or anybody taking me to court or anything, because even if they win and they send me to jail, I have no money to pay, so they've got to send me there, and that would be a big mistake. Anyhow, because that's people in this country, right? When you start to deal with the truth and so, they get angry and they take different angles. But I'm not afraid of anyone. I say what I have to say. We have this country, the political landscape of this society, right, is littered with political opportunists, political prostitutes, political pimps, and political hustlers, fooling the masses of people in this country. I, unapologetically, I'm a revolutionary. I believe in the radical transformation of this new plantation I call Guyana. Why we call it the new plantation? Because when you look, Freddie, you did Caribbean history. Many of us did Caribbean history. When you look at the existing social and economic relations in this society today, tell me if there's any qualitative change between that and the plantation. What we have in this society here, we see the gap between the wealthy, those who have, and the dispossessed, and it's keep widening. And the main political parties, the two main political parties in this country, are not committed to transformational politics. They compete, the political elites in both parties compete to show their imperial masters, to show the white man who's better at managing this plantation. Now, there's a certain amount of control that you have, but when it comes to crucial issues, those decisions are not made here. They're made in Washington or London or in Canada or even in the EU. So, for example, all this noise and letters about Exxon and Exxon and Exxon, good? No one, if you understand, you would understand this. Monopoly capital, Barron and Swayze. If you understand how monopoly capital imperialism operates, you'll know that Exxon is not an ordinary entity. Exxon is an imperial entity. And anytime Exxon's interest is threatened, the US will step in. The US administration steps in. Venezuela under Chavez made tremendous, if you've been to Venezuela before Chavez, with the oil wealth. You leave that airport and you go in and you see the shacks. People 80 years of old never went to a dentist or a doctor. And Chavez utilized all that oil well to carry out transformation, housing, healthcare, and everything. Exxon was kicked out for not paying its share. And when Exxon was kicked out, the US stepped up the blockade and sanctions on Venezuela. Good. So why I mention all of this is because the OVP is the only political organization, not party, I don't like the word party, because we are more than, we're not just for elections. We do a lot of work in the community and all of that. Good? So we're not publicity seekers. We do a lot of work in the communities. We actually run literacy classes and all of that and free education. We have an online program, the George James Institute for Thought and Action. You can go to our website. We are the only political organization that have defined ourselves ideologically. All the parties, from the PPP, everyone are happy with neoliberal economics. Good? Peeping Tom, one of the peoples, wrote an article in the Kaichur titled Birds of a Feather. And he was saying that President Ali invited all the small parties to a meeting at State House. Right? He said, and all the small parties were there except one. And that party is the only one that has defined itself ideologically, and he doubted that that party was invited.
Is that party there?
Yeah, the OVP.
OVP, Organization for the
Yeah.
People. Well, after that political delivery, we go over to Dr. Asha Kissoon.
I could tell you, Freddie, I remembered in 2020, during the elections, Asha came to the fore. We were doing a lot of interviews on radio, Kaichur Radio then, and there were a number of faces that came out that really struck us. The Schumann and Timothy Jonas. Asha was one of them that really had a very big voice back then. I would say those people who protected or who were keeping watch on the containers in Kingston, Asha was among the group that was very, very vocal, along with so many other persons. Asha, I want to ask you at this point in time, I know that you're working with the government, but you're also the founder of or one of the persons who put together the new movement, one of the parties with Anog and the rest of them that came to the fore. My question to you, ma'am, is how relevant are third parties, I would call them third parties or third forces, in this new dimension where you have two big giants, the PPP and the PNC, or you could say APNU and the PPP?
Well, I could start with my journey into politics. If there wasn't a need, I would not have been there from the beginning. We have always seen division, especially with the major parties, especially come election times. They hold on to racism as a crutch when elections are around the corner. We see our people trying to look for something new. People have been asking for it. The amount of calls that come to this phone today with persons asking, come, when we having meetings, when can we get and speak up against government? That's the main thing people ask. And that need has been there from the beginning. My initial step into politics, I never dreamed I would be there. But persons felt that I was somebody that could help lead them into the new era of politics. Women in our country needed to step forward. Young people in our country needed to step forward. When I got into the 2020 election, I learned that I was the first woman to be elected into presidency, because Janet Jagan back in the past, she was selected, not elected. And that meant something to a lot of women. Girls come up to you, women come up to you and say, you know what, we feel motivated.
As a presidential candidate for your party?
Yes, as a presidential candidate for the party. They come up, they feel motivated. And not just youth leadership or women's leadership, but showing that a young person was willing to stand up and speak out against the atrocities that we were seeing all along the journey into politics. Starting out, we campaigned heavily on getting young people involved, health transformation, education, agriculture. We campaigned on hemp. That's one of the things, I'm really happy to see the legislation was passed. And I see the government working on it. My colleague here brought up ExxonMobil. That is a very touchy topic, but the government has an ethical obligation and a moral obligation to look into the contracts that are signed with Exxon. I'm hearing talks about it. I mean, the president of USA said boldly on TV that ExxonMobil made more money than God last year. And yet our government is here, walking, treading lightly around them as if they're walking on glass. And our people should be the ones benefiting from all this money more than God that Exxon made to transform our country where it needs to be.
Thank you for that, Asha. And yes, Freddie, sometime or the other, the issue of oil, we have to get it. It's such a complex issue. I don't really want to jump into it. But there seems to be, it's not only the government, I think the opposition as well. Today I was talking to somebody, Freddie, and as you know, as you get older, I get a little more, I believe that if we step back and don't do anything, we're going to find a shortage of people because there's so many things that's happening to people across this country right now. Attention is divided. Freddie, when I look at the opposition and the government, do you know some of the benefits that the oppositions in parliament get? They get duty-free concession, unlimited CC in vehicles. Sometimes for months and days and weeks you don't hear anything from them, but they collect a salary or a stipend every month. They collect those duty-free concessions. When parliament is there, they sit down and they eat the food. Freddie, we got to call on our representatives to really do the work, because sometimes you only see or hear from them when maybe there's parliament. You don't see them in between, or maybe election time, they stand up on the podium and everybody talk. Ms. Kissoon, I want to come back because 2020 would have been a very eye-opening experience. 5 months this country was riveted in some nonsense that happened, that we're still trying to have an understanding who played what role. In a few weeks we're going to have, I think it's the AG who says that the international COI is going to happen, and I presume everybody's who matters to that election is going to be called. Your experience, maybe in a couple of words, what was the experience there? Did it shock you to the core to see what was playing out?
This was my introduction into politics. Imagine as a young person, hopeful, coming in, you want to make change. And what I experienced and saw the opposition pull there, it was atrocious. Imagine 5 months this country was put on standstill. I stood there while Mingo tried to make that declaration. His hands were shaking. People who are inside would remember he did not want to speak. He was like this. He was shaking. The man knew his body was reacting to the wrong.
Why you think so? Why was he shaking?
Because the count had not finished as yet.
He knew you believe he knew that he was doing something wrong?
Yes, I believe so. Because how can a declaration be made when the recount is not yet finished for Region 4? There were signatures on documents, persons allegedly signed papers. We had a whole fiasco with the bomb scare. I stood there. Myself and Gerald Ford were standing there and they're telling us,
I was there.
Yes, you need
I'll come to you with that.
to vacate this building because there's a bomb inside. We stood there, that's okay. We're going to die for our country if we have to. That's the exact words we said to them, and we didn't move.
I think people, I don't know how much people remember, but Gerald wrote a long letter during the election and said the organization of the Victory of the People had ongoing relation with the PNC. But after what happened in 2020, he said that was it.
That was it.
You want that letter?
Well, Freddie, as I am for the truth, right? I am guided by these principles of truth and justice, right? And this is based on very ancient Kemetic thought and so, right? That is the base of African civilization and culture. I refuse, I was not going to let history record me and the OVP as part of that skullduggery. 2 elections, 2015 and the last one, we gave critical support to APNU. To be honest with you, I did not want the PPP to return. That is why we give critical support to APNU. You know, Lenin said that those in the vanguard must always make sure that you're not so ahead of the people that when you're looking for the people, they're nowhere around. The people wanted a change. They were there and they wanted APNU. So we didn't want to rain on people's parade. Let them go ahead. We said, okay, because we know that APNU was going to mess up big time. So we said, give them the presidential vote, but do not give them everything. Give us the region, because if we won Region 4, it would be something different. Do you know, I told Lowenfield the second time in the last elections, I said, when we went to sign what you call the pledge, remember the accord, and so that we'll conduct elections in such and such a way. I said, the onus is on GCOM to tell the electorate, enlighten the people about the electoral process, right? You know, many people told us, they said, Mr. Pereira, we were going to vote, give the OVP our vote. But there were people who were telling us that if you vote for APNU at the top and the OVP at the bottom, you're spoiling the vote. That is what they were doing.
That's one of the things.
People told us that, right? That is what they were doing. So I said, we can't go wrong and tell people that, because they said, well, you're from the OVP, you can tell us anything. So GCOM had the right. GCOM should have done that. Good. They never, Lowenfield and them, they didn't pay any attention to it. So we had to tell people while we're talking, look, you can vote for APNU and so on there. Now, there are people who turned after 2050, when they won, and said, when they run up to the last elections, I can tell you from confidential and reliable source, 2 persons said, bring the OVP into the coalition. And a former radical and revolutionary, a man who wrote a lot of books and so, he got up, right? One of the men who used to hassle Burnham, was opposed to Burnham. And he said, no, we can't bring the OVP, and the OVP is too militant. They're being watched, the CIA watching them and the FBI watching them, you know. That's the nonsense. So when I heard that, I got the opportunity. They had a gathering at ACTA, and I got up and I spoke. And the place was silent, of course. I said, well, if the FBI and the CIA watching us, that person said, don't even go to the website. I said, then we were in good company, because they were watching Martin Luther King, and they killed Martin Luther King. They were watching Malcolm X. They were watching the Panthers. They were watching all of those activists and great freedom fighters. They were watching Mandela. It was the CIA that pinpointed where Mandela was and informed the Bureau of State Security, the South African Security Intelligence, and arrested Mandela. Good? So I said we were in good company, because we were opposed to drugs. We were opposed to trafficking in persons. We were opposed to all that thing, right? We have a very ethical politics. Good? I do not believe that I rather, as Cabral said, to tell people the truth and get 100 votes than to lie to people and get 1,000 votes. I'm a revolutionary.
You're an honest politician.
Yeah, I believe in a politics of meaning, an ethical politics, right? I believe I am not your reluctant politician, whatever that means, or a politician who say, well, I'm taking a break for a couple years and then I'll come back. No. I have never taken a break.
James Bond said that.
Yeah.
In case
I'm a revolutionary. The revolutionary goes down fighting, right? We are training a whole set and we're conscientizing. I'm using the word conscientize as opposed to educating, right? In the Freirian, you know that tradition. To train a whole new, the youngsters and so to take over. We have a lot of members and a lot of people are joining us, right? When we go into places like Mocha, and we said, how many parties came in here? They said, there's only APNU came in here. Some parties were afraid to go into those areas. Good? So we have a lot of people who are coming over. But I'm telling you, and then the second, they didn't want anything. They treated us like we got leprosy. Good? Now, they never even called me and said, Mr. Pereira, I don't want anything, but send some representative to sit on a board or anything. They stayed away. Well, 2020 again, we supported them. And what I saw in the Ashman building, I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. You were talking about Mingo. when Mingo stopped the count, was somewhere up the East Bank. When he stopped the count. And when he stopped the count of the East Bank, didn't even come down. We didn't start all up the East Coast. He gave the OVP, when he declared the result, he gave us 300 and something. I knew that was impossible. The other thing, this is what sad. When they were showing the parties and the areas they contested, they had OVP, showing the OVP in Region 1, contesting in Region 1, and people in there were laughing and said, oh, you got OVP. That was a mess. That was how clumsy this thing was, right? And I want to say it, and I'm talking to all the poor, the dispossessed, the pump attendant, and those people. Those are the people we stand for, right? We are Pan-Africanists, but that has nothing to do with being anti any ethnic group. Anti any ethnic group. Good? As a Pan-Africanist, we believe that in the emancipation and liberation of all humanity. We are clear in that. But I am not prepared, as an African, as a black person, to stand up with petty bourgeois elements who have no class analysis. But as she said earlier, as Asha said, about using race as a crutch. So all they can do is mobilize the constituency around race. And the fundamental problem in this country is a class issue. Class is the fundamental issue, but they do not want to address that. It's easy to play the race card and set poor Africans against poor Indians, right? And the real culprits, white monopoly capital, Exxon and others, and those, the Australian company, Rusal, and all those that are raping and looting the wealth of this country, while people getting pig feed for minimum wage, right? Nobody's addressing that. Because all the politicians are compromised. You know, I said on Christopher Ram program, when he posed the question about if the PPP get into office, if they will renegotiate the oil contract. And I said, no, they will never. And he said, why? I said, because the truth is, all of them are afraid of white people. Whatever white people tell them, they do.
You think it's being afraid?
They have it's a sort of a, look, they are afraid. They don't rock the boat. They don't rock the boat. Now, you're hearing all this nonsense about the PPP. Let me be honest with you. I went there. I didn't want to see the PPP back in. But the PPP won the elections. No fool can come to me and tell me to my face that the PPP was installed. If you're going to use the word install, then tell us who installed them. Who installed them? Don't just say they were installed. Tell us who are the people that installed them. When I wrote in the 2015 elections, I saw Brian Hunt. The way Brian Hunt was involved in the elections in this country, in a sovereign nation state. Brian Hunt walking up to GCOM as he like. And I wrote a letter castigating Brian Hunt.
You have to tell our viewers who's Brian Hunt.
Brian Hunt, yeah.
The Charge
d'Affaires of the U.S. Embassy.
Right,
that's right, sorry. Yeah, they didn't have the ambassador.
But before you go on, that person you called who wrote books and was a revolutionary, that person was from the WPA?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So, Asha, go ahead. Freddie?
Yeah, Asha, it's unfortunate that there have been some fallout from the new movement. We had one of your former colleagues here, a medical doctor like yourself, and he said they had to leave because there seemed to be a big figure, the money man, that is pulling the strings of the new movement, TNM. Are you uncomfortable with that, or you want to repel that submission?
I'll give you an answer, but I'll keep it short and sweet. You know, I see the public's reaction to this. They're like, oh, here comes a new party, and they're already fighting, and this is so disheartening. But the truth is, wherever human beings are, there will always be differences. Regardless of if it's the PPP, the PNC, TNM, all these big parties have issues too, and the public can't expect us to be perfect. I would like to refute all claims that this party had members leave because of Dr. Dorga. That was not the issue. Before they left the party, we had a meeting. Present was a member from ANOG, who was there as a witness. And the last thing said to my executive, or some of the members who left, because not everybody left, was let us disband the executive, let us call a members meeting, and let us have the new election so the people can speak. They didn't want that. So the next morning I woke up, I heard there are some people who left the party, and I was like, okay, I called an emergency meeting. We had a new election, we had a new executive installed the second day, and we went ahead and worked. I've also heard rumors and claims that Josh Kenai founded the new movement. Let me let the public know right now that that's not true. Josh Kenai was invited to be a founding member of the new movement. If you question him, who came up with the name, who provided the initial manifesto, who put together the team, he played a part as somebody who was there initially, but he did not found my party.
So what if you invited him to found the party? Would it be the same thing?
He's a founding member.
Okay.
He was invited to be a part of this party.
But he
didn't take the initiative.
No,
he was not the protagonist.
No. If you say, I found a party, I come up with this idea, I put together a team.
You're the founder.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask you, 2020, and we switch it up here a little. 2020, there's, I think, do you believe that the fight in 2020, was it for democracy or for the PPP to go in?
All right, let me start off because I'm sure Mr.
Yeah, go on.
Because I have a follow-up question from that.
Right. This, on our end, it was for democracy. We made it publicly clear that at no time do we support any of the major parties. In a sense, we're not joining them, we're not working as part of them. So we wanted the people of Guyana's votes to be counted fairly and equally so that whoever wins did it in the right way. And I would say, I have said, the PPP did win fair and square. After the recount, we saw it. We're hearing rumors that PNC is still claiming that, APNU, my bad, is claiming that it's an installed government and democracy was not held up. And they're submitting evidence that the election was not free and fair, and we would love to see that evidence. Mm-hmm. But we stood up. I hate to say that I stand for a political party, but I stand for the people of Guyana because their votes and their voices deserve to be heard, and that's what I stood for.
Terry?
Well, when Mingo, final tab Mingo give us 300 something votes. And then when we had the recount gave us 500 and something. So who was trying to steal the OVP's vote? I mean, it's not just happening when the PPP contested the elections. It's 11 parties. What happened to the other parties? People behave as just the PPP and APNO. What about the small parties? We were there. I saw what was going on. Right? It was a blatant attempt at rigging the election. Now, if we're going to talk about install, I remember you posing the question to Clement Roy, and Clement was going all over because, he was very careful with his words he wouldn't want to say. But yes, when I wrote that letter about Brian Hunt, the U.S. Charter Affairs, and it was published in the Chronicle, the next day, the editor, the then editor, was roasted. He was hauled over the coals. He had to write an apology and saying that the letter was written. They didn't even mention my name by somebody who contested the elections as though you're nothing. Good? The APNU must tell us, right? APNU must tell the people of this country what they know about the role of Brian Hunt. What was Brian Hunt's role? It is based on what I know and our information. When you raise the issue about Steve Surajbali and why Steve Surajbali refused
the recount.
Yeah. Brian Hunt.
I know what Hunt did. I know Hunt's role. Hunt's role.
All right. So when they're going to talk about install, come honest. Come with the people of this country in front of. I'm not for PPP, as we said. Either way, we are screwed.
But do you know there's something you have said, and we're going quickly.
Yeah.
But I need to point out to people, Do you know there's an absurdity that was just pronounced here, and I want to carp on it and harp on it so it could register.
Yeah.
Here is Mingo putting up returns and put up returns for a party that did not contest the election in Region 1.
Yeah.
What
It
do
was
you,
there.
What do you want?
I was
How
there.
could-
People were laughing.
if people were listening to this show, if people believe what the PNC and WPA and AFC saying, here you have a returning officer putting up for all the media, all the observers to see this school, that school, this region, and here you have the votes in Region 1 from a party
OVP.
that didn't exist.
345
No,
OVP.
man,
I have an explanation
In Region
for that.
1, it was there.
If Mingo has an explanation,
No,
yes.
I have an explanation for that. Remember, I have a theory as to, remember I asked the question.
You
I
have a
think in
theory about
recent-
Mingo?
No, not about Mingo. About what I was asking whether it's a conspiracy. It is my belief that what played out in 2020 there was let's take it one day at a time and see how this thing plays up. And that is how I think. So when you see that thing happen, because you can't have a plan and then you know that the man didn't contest the elections there and then have it there. It's ad hoc, it's haphazard, and that's the only explanation, Freddie. We were taking it one day at a time, see what happened next. Whoever were the instigators or the people, how you say it, the people, the masterminds, who was behind Mingo, and the matter is before the court. I don't want to say too much about that, but it cannot be that that was a conspiracy. It had to be, let's take it one day at a time. The situation, we lost the election or whatever the situation is, let us do it one day at a time.
And one
that
day,
explains it.
one day you sit down, Mingo and Mango and
You
they
said
sit
Mango.
down. They sit down and this day they did this. We can give Schumann 76. We can give OVP 12. And you sit down and you're doing this, and then you see the 12 for OVP, or you see the 76 of Schumann in areas where they did not contest it. No, I'm going to move on, but I can't help saying that is very hilarious.
There is a point I'd like to make in relation to that. You see, what I observed in the 2020 election is that new parties played a crucial role into the declaration and the recount of the results and the outcome of the election. If we were not there, it would have been the traditional fight, APNU, PPP, election petition. Nothing would have come out of it. But when they saw that it was 11 other parties saying the same thing, the rigging could not happen as easily as they would have thought it could happen.
That's a good point.
Government
and Josh Kanai and
many players.
Rhonda Lamb was there.
Rhonda Lamb was exceptional.
Yes.
And Jerry, of course, has a big
I was
mouth.
there.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I mean, we're happy that the international community was there. The international community was there. But if we were not there, believe me, that rigging could have happened.
So I think to add to that, that's a pretty good conversation to have. If you look at the players that would have had the voices out, because I was paying close attention to that. It was not only from the embassies. I recalled interviewing people who were elections personalities from other jurisdictions, people who were judges, lawyers, and so on, who participated and who played a role in some of the cases that went before the courts. So it was a whole bunch of people that you could not believe. I would call it even a movement that was there. You had people guarding the ballot boxes. You had people that was all over the place.
But you know what is important about this program tonight? Here you have a man who declared that he's a black man, declare that he's not a supporter of the PPP. And this is where there is an indictment, a formidable moral indictment of many sections of this society. Here you have on display tonight a man who says, I'm a black man, a man who says, I am not a PPP, and a man who just said he believes foreign elements are exploiting Guyana. But he said, I had a conscience on March 2020. You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of Ian MacDonald. When I saw MacDonald referring to we, how could they rob we, meaning Guyanese, you were saying I'm a Guyanese. That man never wrote a word about politics in his 70-year-old, never touched politics. And that man said, I could not accept what I was seeing. And do you know the amount of people, the women group? Gerald and Asha, I did my research when the Minister of Education was here. I am saying to viewers now, I am saying now, there has not been one word, public word of condemnation by any of the 12 plus women groups that exist in this country. You just call them Help and Shelter, Red Thread, what? None of those people who say women's rights must be protected, none of them said anything about the election. And do you know women were being brutalized? Do you know there was a person who's now a minister? I'm going to call her name. Her name is Sonia Parag. That woman almost got in physical harm. And what is important here tonight for researchers to research is what Gerald Pereira is saying. All he is saying is, I don't like the politics of this country, I don't like what the political parties are doing, but when it comes to what I saw there, I have a conscience. That is what he's saying, and it's so good that we have this kind of program, so researchers could look into it. The point about the 2020 election, Gerald, Asha, and Gildari, was the human conscience had to be pricked.
I agree with you, Freddie, there, because it's admirable. I think we need more independent voices, people who could be afraid to call a spade, tell the government that, hey, you're messing up, tell the opposition, hey, you're not doing your job. Why should we be afraid? This is our country. As a good man on the radio would say, the oil is in our backyard. We're supposed to be saying to the people that are taking it out, it is ours, it belongs to us. And so by so saying, say to the government as well, say to the opposition, you're not doing your job. And I like that, Jerry, that you could be able to say that, look, I don't agree, and you've laid it out. I backed you, but what I saw there is against my conscience. Coming back to this government, I saw several things within the last couple of months that had me, taking notice. Irfan Ali, as a president, I saw him dancing, singing. I think I don't give a lot of kudos to his prowess in singing, but I could say that as a man who seems to be one and the same with the people and who's making a good attempt to really reaching out to the people, that he seems to be doing a good job at that, or at least from the PR side. Do you, Asha, believe that this government, Irfan Ali and this government, is doing a good job? If not, what are some of the places that they're falling down on?
I see them making a great effort, I will be honest, especially in the housing sector. I really admire the women and the work they're putting in, Priya Manichan, Sonia Parag. I admire the hours that they put in, because I have colleagues who work with them, and I see the transformation in the educational system. I see all the scholarships going out. I see, everybody was talking about Irfan Ali and fraudulent certificates, but the man has been trying, let's be honest. Is there room for improvement?
That man has a legitimate doctorate.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. People have been saying this.
UWI.
People have been saying that. But I see a sincere effort from him. He's in the regions, he's with the people, he's talking to them, which is good. It's something that we were lacking during the Granger administration. Is there room for improvement? There's always room for improvement. Let's start with the public sector. Everybody's calling for this 50% salary increase that they were promised, but my issue really is not the salary increase, but the taxes on the salary that are existing. The PAYE and the income tax that come out, person's barely making it, man. That's one of the calls from the people. Another thing, we're talking about the oil. There is a disassociation between our oil and Exxon's oil as the people of Guyana. The people don't feel like they own their own resources. And this, I believe, is the government's gap to fill. When you start getting persons involved and helping them to feel like, I am benefiting from this, not just foreign investors. This is a point he made. And it may be a bit extreme, but there is a lot of truth to it. If you speak to the common man on the street, they're going to say, man, is everybody coming in and getting everything? That's the feedback you're getting because of that disassociation. I see jobs are being created, temporary jobs, training, scholarships. It is my hope that the end product of this is the Guyanese people being qualified to be in major positions, not just in the oil and gas industry, but in our agriculture, education, health, in all the different sectors. The disassociation still exists. Room for improvement, they're calling for local government election in January. But where's the electoral reform? We going back to another 2020 scenario just now in January for local government. We still have GCOM being politically led. There are 3 persons from opposition and 3 from government, and the chairman who's there sitting like, oh gosh, they're going to always vote 3 and 3. Civil society is not involved enough. We're going back into elections 2025 and nothing is being done about it. Constitutional reform, all the preaching during the election campaign, we still sitting and waiting for it.
Jerry, same question to you.
Well, Gildari, I am a patriot. I believe that the nation is more important than any political party. Any government that is trying to do something for the people, whether it's in the area of health and housing and fight against poverty or anything, and so I'm going to support them. I'm not in the business of fighting and picking a fight where there's no need for it. If you're going to, when you're scoring, we will acknowledge it and you'll get our support. When you go wrong, we'll be there to condemn you.
I did a good job. This one, my
now, for me, I still think it's too early, right, to bring out a fear. Because let me tell you something. I go into villages and many people come running up to me and saying, I've been waiting for my land for years and all that, and I've got my land. They're showing me the thing they got through and all of that, right? Let me give you an example. A morning I got a call, and when I checked the phone, it wasn't in my contact. So I returned the call. I was engaged for a long time, and then I got through, and the person said, Honorable Gerald Pereira. I recognize Annie Nandalal's voice. So I want to know. I didn't know how he got my number, and he called me. He said, look, we have these scholarships that the government of Guyana is offering, right? The 20-something thousand and all of that. He said, and I would like you, he said, I know you do a lot of work in those villages and so. I'd like you to get the people in villages like Buxton and other areas and so to take up these scholarships, right? And the reason was given. So here what was happening. You had people, I wrote a letter the next day in the papers about it. It appeared in Kaieteur News. Not to reply to it. You had people who pretending, these people, that they're for African Guyanese, going around and telling African Guyanese not to take the PPP scholarships. The government of Guyana scholarship. PPP scholarships is when you used to send them guys to Moscow and everything in those days. You remember?
Yeah, this is
that PPP. This is government scholarship.
This is recently this happened?
Yeah. This happened when they start announced early when they brought up the scholarship, start to invite people to apply for the scholarships, right?
It's a couple months ago.
So you had people telling African Guyanese not to take the PPP scholarships. And these hypocrites, their children are studying at universities abroad. They never, when they came out of school, whether it is Bishops or QC or where, they never even send them to UG for 1 semester. Right? I brought my daughter all the way here so that she can have a third world. Let she see it.
Gildari, I taught his daughter.
Yep.
UG.
Again?
Yep.
What about you thought, man?
Good. To see things. And these people want, and I got people, I went around, we collected the forms, and we enrolled people into these scholarships. Because if African Guyanese don't enroll take up these scholarships. Good? And get qualified. When others take these scholarships and then apply for the jobs and we don't have it, what are we going to say? Marginalization.
But Gerald,
I mean, this is playing with our people.
they're taking the parliamentary salaries, Gerald.
Yeah. You know, that's what these bourgeois politicians are all about. That's what they do. They're not really interested in the people. The people are people to be manipulated and lied to the people.
You know,
that's what they're there for.
The two of you, you know, I know him when we were teenagers together. Rhyming together
You formed
every
a
night.
group called Che.
Rhyming every
Center
night.
for
He
Human
was with
Equality.
teenagers. And you know, he was exactly like that. So over
Yeah.
50 years,
Yeah.
he hasn't changed.
And we were always talking politics.
Late in the night with teenagers,
Let
16,
me just
17.
add that I got several calls that opposition was telling young people not to apply or accept scholarships because it's being offered by
I don't want to
PDP.
believe what I'm hearing.
I got calls from people complaining, how can you call yourself opposition, representing the people of Guyana and trying to stop your people from having an
There's a close
education?
PNC lawyer. He does all the work for the PNC. He is a PNC. The Attorney General called his name and said he got a scholarship. His name is Darren Wade. That's a big name in the PNC.
Somebody
So he
asked
took-
me to ask you a
He's in a
question,
master's.
Jerry. Sometime during the dark days, I think it was it during the 2000, you played some role?
2000.
Yes. Could you bring some highlight into that?
Which, in what?
In the boxing, maybe the area there?
Well, we used to, we were doing work in a community work in Buxton. And we would bring out flyers, educational flyers and things and so. And then you got very nasty
Flyers
forces.
like these?
Yeah. People tried to link us to what was happening in Buxton, right? And then you had this whole thing with missing army weapons and all of that. And put my name in the paper alongside that. That created tremendous problems to me, in terms of, you're traveling and all of that and so. But I want to say this. Good? I lived abroad and I was out of this country for 20-something years. And I never took citizenship of any other country. And I could have done so. Right? One country, for example, why I refuse to take citizenship. Because I like to be ideologically consistent. I am not going to stand before the Queen's representative and swear allegiance to the Queen and her descendants. As a Pan-Africanist, I want talking about reparations. And swear allegiance to the British Crown to get a passport. No way. No way. And you had people sitting, other than Charnas, you had others, knowing that the thing is unconstitutional. And they all got dual citizenship. And they're all sitting in that parliament. Some with Canadian citizenship, British citizenship, American citizenship, dual citizenship. Good? So I am consistent with that. Good? Now, I don't believe, right? I do not believe that the conditions exist in Guyana or the period in the way the global level, picking up of arms and all of that will get you anywhere. Good? Of course, I believe in self-defense, but picking up arms to overthrow government is not going to take you anywhere, right? Maybe in some places, recently I've seen it successful in Mali and so, but it's different. The conditions and what is taking place there is different. At least those people have a history of that. We don't have that. The nearest we had is in Trinidad. Good? Minister Farrakhan invited me in 2014 to speak at the Million Man March in Jamaica because I'm close to him. And when I got to Antigua, I was turned back. None of the Pan-Africanists, nobody or the Black Rights group ever called me and said, Pereira, what happened? How can we come give you some support? The only one of, I'm not going to mention, 3 persons, and Andaye, the late Andaye was one. She was prepared to say, look, let's go and do something about this. So I can't even transit the United States. I can't transit Britain. And I used to be in Britain, so I can't transit that. That's where I am. Good, but I'm in good company.
You never raise this with the APNU government. You never say, well, look, could you do some diplomatic work for?
No,
they have an obligation.
No, you know, history. It's only a question. History and time. History will be the best judge of certain events, and we will be able to see certain things. But Freddie, I'll tell you something. I know you for years, and I know you're a serious reader. You're a man, you can show a book. You'll snatch it and you'll go with it, right?
Seriously?
And you'll say, I want to read this before you, right? you didn't do your thing, right? But the thing is, I have philosophical and ideological differences with you. Like, for example, I believe that this liberal democracy is a contradiction in terms. I believe that what is called democracy, that the Western countries imposed on us, is a highly contested term. I don't believe that democracy is a Western invention that can be imposed one way or the other. It's a one-size-fits-all type of thing, right? And different countries, look how many years it took Britain, how many centuries for Britain to evolve to where it is today, right? But put aside those differences, at the end of the day, is what matters to me is human decency, a sense of what is right. I know you mentioned John Locke the other day when you talk about moral obligation, you know, rather than using righteous. But we talk about righteous struggle. But getting back to you, right? We had nothing to do with that. We had nothing to do with that.
Thank you very much, Freddie.
You know?
Yeah, maybe.
We had nothing to do with that.
Oh, yeah, time's going. Asha, you're going to be in Parliament in less than a year. There's going to be a lot of focus.
Well, it's in discussion right now. Initially, the agreement was that we go in order of votes, but we're in discussion right now. Anug has put forward a proposal that I go second, so we're about to come to that agreement.
Well, you know, you have to... people looking at this program and your delivery, which is quite excellent, you have big shoes to fill.
Well, I always stand for the people of Guyana. You see, there are different types of politics, and as much as I don't like the word, I am a politician, but I'll use the opposition as an example. You can campaign on problems, or you can campaign on ideas and sincere change that you want to bring. All I'm hearing is problems on their end. I intend to bring ideas and change. Not just to sit and accept benefits and everything that comes with Parliament, but to see sincere changes, speak out, and do what is needed to help the people of Guyana.
Thank you very much for that. And so I think maybe, Freddie, you wanted to throw some light on what it means by her entering Parliament. There's an agreement.
Well, when we, my understanding, and I had a discussion with her, is that it would be Lennox Schumann first. Well, would be the Liberty and Justice Party first. Because remember, the three of them combined. So Schumann is due to leave next year. Liberty and Justice Party's representative, the tenure end next year. Then it would be Anug and then TNM. But I think she's saying that the parameters that have been discussed, it looks like Anug would prefer TNM to go into Parliament next year, and Anug takes the thing in 2025.
Who wouldn't want to enter Parliament? That's an interesting conversation. Freddie, I think you have an announcement because we have about 2 minutes more.
Well, the announcement is that our guest on Monday is the former president of the Republic of Guyana. He should have a lot to say about, well, one of his pet subjects, I know, is foreign policy.
Is it Sam Hines? I'm excited.
Sam Hines was never the former president. Oh, yes, Sam Hines was former president.
Just asking.
Former president Donald Ramatar.
Okay.
Former president for more than 6 months. Sam Hines was for 6 months. So please look out for Honorable Donald Ramatar. His pet subject is international relations, but he was the former president, so he would have things to tell us about. Maybe you could question him about Brian Hunt. But before we go, Gerald and Asha, I hope in the coming months and years, the society should recognize the media, more efforts of these small parties. There are about 6, 7, 8 of them, and you guys do work among people. I know Josh Kanai, I know Asha, I know Gerald, I know Lennox Schumann, and I know those people do work. And it is disheartening that you pick up the papers and see the Guyana Human Rights Association front page, and you don't hear about these people doing anything. I mean, Gerald brought his thing.
We bring out...
You know, I know you in Sophia, and you've been working as a medical doctor. So I would just like to wish all the small parties the best in the future. And whatever you want to say, we got a minute more, both of you.
I just want to say this because Leonard Gildari asked about President Ali. I met President Ali before he became president at the Ashman building. He seems to be a very friendly person. I think I agree with those persons. People were saying that I think he's well-intentioned, but it has to be more than well-intentioned. Of course, Mandela was a very friendly person. Mandela was very well-intentioned, and look at South Africa today. South Africa is a classic case of neocolonialism. You have apartheid as it existed then. It's gone, but you have economic apartheid. Black faces in high places. Some of those former ANC leaders are now wealthy, multi-millionaires. You go to many parts of South Africa, that's why the EFF, Julius Malema's party, Economic Freedom Fighters, are growing. They will win the next election because every election the ANC keeps losing votes. And, you know, being well-intentioned and so will not bring about, you have to have courage and vision and to hold that bull by the horn and rein it in. There's certain things that must be done, fundamental things that we have to address.
Asha?
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you guys for this opportunity to speak to the people of Guyana. We aren't really afforded these openings from mainstream media.
You will be back, trust me. You will be back.
That's the truth of it. And, you know, it was a great experience interacting with you gentlemen tonight. And TNM thanks you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, dear ladies and gentlemen. As always, I'm left educated after every conversation that we have here. For example, every day I learn something new. Like, for example, Freddie Kissoon is teaching somebody else, and I don't know. Next thing you know, he might be teaching.
But I would say, when people show me book, I snatched it.
Yeah.
Well, in those days, you don't have people doing that.
There's a story behind Freddie and snatching the books, but that's another story for another day. But we take this opportunity as we say goodbye and we enter into the weekend for you to remain safe, take care on our roadways, and of course we're going to be back with you Monday, same place, same time. Be good to yourself, be good to others, and let's save this country. We have a lot of work to do, and we have to play our part in raising the level, raising our standards, and taking this country to the next level. Have a pleasant rest of the weekend.